Three, two, one, here we go. Rainman's Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man. Just want to give a quick shout out to everybody watching. Thank you very much. I know you're going to find this next interview thought-provoking. I enjoy spending time with people like my next guest and getting into more detail about the subject matter. And I know you appreciate that as well. So go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. That way we can continue bringing you great content in the future. So thanks again for being part of Rain Man's Take and enjoy the interview. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man. I want to welcome in my guest, Ed Bartlett. Ed, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great.
Good, good. I wanted to have Ed on today. Ed is a current captain in the Merchant Marines. He's also president of Bartlett Maritime Corporation. And I wanted to talk to Ed today just kind of about the current state of the U.S. Navy's readiness. And I figure he's a great person to talk to about that. So Ed, thanks very much for joining me. Why don't we go ahead and why don't you give me a little bit of your background, both in the Navy and then in the maritime industry?
Great. Thanks for having me. I am a former submariner, and most of my service at sea was in submarines. During the Cold War, I served on 3 attack submarines, the USS Bergall, the plank owner on the USS La Jolla, and my last ship was USS Gato. Gato was the last of the Thresher-class ships to be delivered, the last one in service. And when I served on it, it was a relatively mature ship headed into its final overhaul in its service cycle. So during the period I served on it, it was well worn and it was in tough shape mechanically. So I was on a brand new ship, the La Jolla, but on the Gato, it was an older ship in tough mechanical shape, still safe, still took it to sea, still did the mission, still persevered and beat the adversary, but it was a tough ship to be on. And it really heightened for me the awareness of the importance of maintenance for Navy submarines. So my service in the Navy encompassed those 3 submarines.
And then from there, and that's interesting you say that, because when I flew in the Marine Corps, I flew the old UH-1 November model Huey, the old 2-bladed version. So when you're talking about an old beat up piece of machinery that can still get the mission done, that made me kind of smile.
Absolutely.
So obviously that's now something that is of supreme importance in our current Navy. What did you do afterwards? Did you start up Bartlett Maritime Corporation kind of right after the Navy, or where'd you go from there?
After I left the Navy, I joined General Dynamics Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut as a nuclear construction engineer. While I was in the Navy, I'd actually also been an instructor at nuclear power school, was very much into the nuclear power side of it, propulsion engineering side, and went to Electric Boat and worked briefly in the shipyard in the construction of nuclear powered ships. At the time, it was the mid-1980s, height of the Cold War. We were building the Los Angeles class and the Ohio class SSBNs, the first big boomers. And of interest in that period, when I first worked at the shipyard, we were building USS Helena, SSN 725. That ship was the last ship that we built that had fair water planes, the planes that stick out of the vertical fin on the submarine. Since then, they've all had retractable bow planes. Helena was built in 2.5 years from keel laying to delivery, which when we get farther into the story, will come up as a relevant point. From there, I went up and worked in the Seawolf design project for several years. I was responsible for the development of all the pumps in the propulsion plant. And then I was tagged as, we had like 4,000 engineers at Electric Boat at the time. And I was tagged to go leave that position and start up a development for an advanced submarine electric drive program. The company had recently lost a competitive procurement in that area for a DARPA contract for an advanced development. They wanted to win it back, and I got tagged to do it. So I led a team for that, which evolved through the course of time with the fall of the Berlin Wall and everything. It actually evolved into the beginning of the Virginia-class program. So we sidelined electric drive for a while. The technology wasn't ready, and we moved right into the Virginia-class program, which I led the early design of, and a number of the major innovations in that ship actually were my original ideas. So I started with Virginia-class, started the Virginia-class electric boat when I was there.
And so obviously, you know what you're doing around building ships, around what it takes to maintain them. Let's kind of jump right into it here. There's definitely some concern right now with the direction not only the Navy's going, but just the military in general. It seems like we're into this major overhaul of how the military conducts business, and it seems like that's across the branches of service. In the Navy, in particular, the big concern is not only is the number of ships that the current Navy is and what kind of future projections of that is, but with those ships, obviously there is a lot of aging pieces of equipment within those ships, and it seems like the maintenance schedule is not keeping up with the deployment cycle of these ships. So can talk a little bit about maybe where we are right now, what the concern is, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, so I mentioned the Helena before, which I participated in construction of in a minor way. I did some engineering dispositions on it. But it was the first ship I worked on as a construction engineer. It ended up, it was built in the mid 80s, and fast forward to today, it's near the end of its service life. And it was scheduled for the last time in the shipyard in the 688 class. It's scheduled as a 6-month period where you go in, you inspect inside the ballast tanks, you do all your certifications to continue your subsafe certification, kind of like the NATOPS and whatever, make sure the ship is certified to go to sea, and then you can continue out and finish the ship's life. Well, it went in for its 6-month overhaul, and it came out 5 years later of the shipyard it went into, and it was still not done. It went right into another shipyard to be finished. And as of right now today, the Helena is in like the 6th year of its 6-month overhaul. That is emblematic of what's going on. The USS Boise was supposed to follow Helena into the shipyard it was originally in, and the Boise sat at the pier in Norfolk for over 4 years, unable to go to sea because its dive certification was expired. It is now in the shipyard, and because it sat at the pier for 4 years, unable to get underway, it became everybody's cannibalization source. So the ship at Boise was cannibalized significantly to keep other operational ships at sea. And when I say cannibalization, you go in and you take an operational piece of equipment off of the Boise and you put it on another ship that needs to go to sea. And you don't backfill it because it's going into overhaul.
So basically the Boise is just a shell right now, a floating shell.
It went into overhaul, and it is so badly cannibalized that the Navy is actively considering right now scrapping Boise instead of getting the final life out of the ship. It's still got reactor life left. It's still got hull life left. It's still got equipment life left. And it was a great ship, but it's in pretty tough shape because of all the cannibalization and the inactive period. So it may never go to sea again. That is emblematic of what's going on. And then on top of that, you may have heard about the suicides on the Uss George Washington. That is another symptom of what's going on. In a period of 1 week in April, 3 sailors on George Washington committed suicide. And the initial reports suggest, and the investigations obviously are not complete yet, but they suggest that it has to do with the living conditions on the ship. And I will tell you, George Washington went into refueling overhaul, and in August of 2017, was scheduled to be completed in August of 2021, 4-year overhaul for refueling. And they moved the crew back aboard in April of 2021 in anticipation of being done. Well, fast forward, George Washington will not be done until next summer, the summer of 23. And just recently this week, they took the crew off of it again and put them in barracks over at another shipyard over an hour away from where it's at. The problem is the shipyards can't keep up. They can't keep up with new construction. They can't keep up with overhauls. Everything's fallen behind. The Navy recently had a period of 681 days between deliveries of new Virginia-class submarines. 681 days. Now, they delivered 2 within 14 days, but in that 695-day period, they were supposed to get 4 submarines. They got 2. Okay? You can't build them. You can't maintain them. You can't refuel them. The crews are just suffering terribly, the ones that are stuck in overhaul. And meanwhile, you've got what's going on over in Central Europe right now, in Ukraine. You've got China looking at it. You got China fully aware of the condition of the U.S. Navy. And here we are without enough ship repair capacity to keep our ships at sea, and without enough construction capacity to build our new ships, which puts in question, at risk, the new Columbia class, which has to replace the Ohio class, which is now aged out. Those are like they're in the mid 40s in terms of age, which is really old for a submarine. And
let's take a step back here. And obviously, I'm not going to put you on the spot in terms of what your politics is. Everybody pretty much knows what mine is. Where did we start going? Where did this thing start going off the rails?
This went off the rails 30 years ago.
30. And so now the chickens are coming home to roost now.
Well, what happened 30 years ago, we had something called BRAC.
Okay.
And we said, okay, we're going to take a peace dividend. The Cold War is over. We won. Hooray, we won. Okay, so we closed a whole bunch of naval shipyards. We had 11. Now we've got 4. We should have kept at least one more of the shipyards. Either we should not have closed Mare Island or we should not have closed Charleston. One of those 2 should have been kept. But we closed all these shipyards. Now we've got 4. That's not enough. And also we stopped building ships, for a long time, building submarines at 1 a year after building 5 a year for the last 15 years before that. So the whole industrial base got shrunk. So now here we are. And then 9/11 happens. And all of a sudden we're running the hell out of our aircraft carriers, and submarines are going with them. And don't think the submarine missions went down. They did not. So we're running the hell out of our submarines too, more obviously because you can see where the carriers are. So we're running the carriers out of fuel faster, which is why the Stennis is already in refueling, even though George Washington isn't done. And it's, the next one after it. And it's why we've got all these submarines. For the last decade, we've averaged about 3.5 submarines out of service or in delayed maintenance that should be underway, and averaged almost the whole carrier. And we've only got 11 carriers, right, that are out of service in delayed maintenance that should have been able to be underway. So this is a crisis. It's one of these things like, the frog in the water. If you dump the frog into boiling water, it's going to jump right out. But the frog's in the water and you put the heat on, and, it's been getting hotter and hotter and hotter. This has been growing for the last 15 years or more. And now it's reached the crisis stage. And it's affecting both our construction side and our maintenance side for all nuclear powered ships.
Yeah. Now, I know in the 80s, Reagan made a huge push to increase the number of ships. And I want to say it was somewhere in the mid 400s. I don't know if we ever got there or not, but it seems like ever since him, they've been chopping that down.
We peaked at 592 ships in 1989.
592. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, when Trump was in office, he wanted to start ramping that back up, right? And then, of course, when he left, you get the current DOD and what's going on right now. And this also kind of comes into what I was just saying earlier, and that whole idea of completely revamping the military strategy, how we operate, how we do business. And they're calling it the divest to invest, meaning not take away the numbers, but get better quality equipment. Can that even work right now in the Navy? Because they can't even build the ships, it seems like.
Well, I have an old friend, Admiral Ed Giambastiani. When he was vice chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he used to have a saying. He called it, "Quantity has a quality all its own." I don't think he was the first guy to say that, but he's the one that I associate it with. So quantity has a quality all its own, which the Navy tried to do with the LCS ships, of course, which were not highly successful. They were not very successful, right? And that's evident by the fact now they want to scrap them all. And while we've moved to the traditional frigate, the Constellation class, which is going to be an awesome ship. But we've had a bunch of false starts. The Navy's kind of done it to themselves a little bit. DDG 1000 turned out to be not much of a effective ship. I mean, we're going to make use of those 3 hulls that we've got. LCS turned out to be not much of an effective ship. We're going to make use of what we've got. The workhorse DDG 51, we just keep building it. But it's been a difficult run for the Navy over the last 15 or 20 years. And
well, it obviously you have to, the blame has to go to the top, to the administration and the civilian administration that's running the DOD. Is it that it can't be that they don't understand this? There's got to be something, and it can't just be money, trying to save money here and there. I mean, I guess this is rhetorical, but I can't figure out why they're going down this road.
Well, in 2017, just to give you an example, the GAO did a report on the condition of the 4 naval shipyards that were left. Okay. And they documented that the 4 naval shipyards were basically falling apart. The dry docks were getting to the point of not being safe anymore. The facilities, the cranes, the furnaces, all the other equipment in the shipyards, not in good shape at all. In fact, it was documented that some parts were heat treated in an oven and used in submarines for over a decade, where that oven was not operating at the right temperatures. So it called into question the heat treatment of a whole lot of parts used in American submarines, which heat treatment is a big deal in terms of the strength of that steel. So a program was created called SIOP, Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Plan. And they said that they were going to take $20 billion over 20 years to reinvest in the naval shipyards to get them back up to snuff. And they had traditionally been investing $300 million a year in terms of maintenance on these shipyards, the facilities, capital equipment. And now they want to jump it up to approximately $1 billion a year. And they've made some strides. There's a Dry Dock 1 rehabilitation program going on at Portsmouth, New Hampshire right now. Significant project, $2 billion. They're working on something called Dry Dock 5 out at Pearl Harbor, which is at that naval shipyard going to be a big job. They're looking at building another dry dock in Puget Sound so they can handle the CVN 78 class on the West Coast. That's going to be another big thing. But the whole thing turned into a bit of a boondoggle. It was not managed very well. And it actually, the people that were originally in charge of it just got fired earlier this year. And they got shifted from NAVC over to NAVFAC to be leadership of this thing. But it's emblematic of the real symptom of the way defense budgeting works. If you put $1 billion into buying a new DDG, that's very obvious in the states that build the ships in Maine and Mississippi, and then all the major contractors, the engines and all the equipment on board. They're obviously going to get a boost out of that. And that's very visible and very political. The problem is, if you put $1 billion into fixing up a naval shipyard, there's not a big constituency base for that. It doesn't really, it's like maintenance is, it's a lot more politically attractive to build a new ship than to maintain an existing ship or to maintain existing infrastructure. It's just the nature of the political budgeting process. And I think that's a real symptom of a problem. And I think people need to wake up to this thing and figure out that maintenance is very important too.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that in a second here, because that's the reason why you're on. You got some pretty amazing ideas, but just, and I think a lot of people who have not been in the military before get this idea that, when the world is relatively peaceful, you really don't, it's kind of just put that thing in the closet and don't worry about it. And then obviously when you need it, the stuff better work. And it's that famous adage when Rumsfeld said, you go to war with the equipment that you have, not that you wish you had. the problem with that is, like you said, it needs to be maintained so it can continue doing that. And the fear that I personally have, and again, we'll get into this where you kind of come in to as a potential solution. The fear that I have, and again, this is me having been out of the military for 15 plus years, still have friends that are in the military, but the fear that I have is that if it does come to pass that we have to ramp back up to do something, that it's going to come across looking like what the Soviet Union looks like right now in Ukraine. Everybody thought they were this killer machine, and all of a sudden the reality is significantly different. And that concerns the simple fact of what the Navy is supposed to be doing in terms of commerce and our everyday lives. And Jerry Hendricks wrote that great book about the freedom of the oceans. And, there are very real possibilities of choke points within the South Pacific where commerce goes back and forth, being controlled by China eventually. So there's some real world kind of scary quality of our lives type of outcomes if we don't get this right. And so you had come up with some ideas that to help kind of solve the problem of the maintenance and that sort of thing. So kind of talk a little bit about kind of what your take is, and then we'll kind of get into how that's going in terms of trying to convince the leadership that this is the right way to go.
Well, I'll just point out that you referred to Jerry Hendricks' book, and I recommend that to everybody. I think it's a great book. It's an easy read too for people that aren't deeply involved in this strategy. But one thing that he points out, and I'll just mention here, is that the United States Constitution goes out of its way in 1776 to say the job of the Congress is to raise and support a Navy, build and support a Navy. That was recognized from the earliest days of this nation that we are a maritime nation and that the Navy has got to be the preeminent source of national security. We're not going to be attacked from Canada. We're not going to be attacked from Mexico, probably. They're both friendly nations to us. If we're ever going to be attacked, it's going to be basically from the sea, from the maritime domain. And our interests are global, particularly with regard to trade. You're absolutely right about the South China Sea. You're absolutely right about the choke points that exist over there. And our national interest is to not let that all happen. I mean, go back to the Marines and Tripoli and the Barbary pirates and our first wars over there. It was a maritime situation far from our shores where it all got started. So our ideas it's very, very simple. I mean, if you really take a hard-nosed look, and I know the Navy's done this because I've seen the results of their analysis, and we've done this, and the GAO has done this, the Congressional Budget Office has done this, the Heritage Foundation has done this. If you take a hard look at the data and the details, the United States needs more maintenance and also construction infrastructure to support particularly nuclear shipbuilding. If you take it, as the Biden administration has actually put forward, that our submarine force is our preeminent element of the Navy right now, the featured element of what they want to do. Because, let's face it, the Chinese have this DF-21 missile, which can wipe out a surface ship at 1,000 miles with a very accurate thing. The flagship of the Russian fleet was taken out by two relatively low-cost, not ultra-sophisticated missiles launched from land. Now, they had some targeting help and whatever, but I mean, they wiped out the Moscow with those two missiles. So surface ships have got emerging additional threats, but submarine force, because they can't find our ships, is very, very powerful and very, very potent these days. And it's the one they want to feature. Yet you can't get there without more industrial infrastructure to both support manufacturing and maintenance. So we took that as it's a going in proposition. The other going in proposition is that, that they're faced with building the Columbia class, which is basically chewing up a big portion of the Navy's shipbuilding budget, so-called SCN. They're trying to do this. They call it a 100-year recapitalization of the naval shipyards, taking up a lot of money for that SIOP program. And they still have to buy aircraft. They have to maintain aircraft. They still have to support the surface force, build surface ships. the amphibious ships. All the other priorities didn't go away. So, and also, face facts, we have divided Congress, which makes legislation exceptionally difficult to have to get through. Right. So recognizing there's no money, there's a huge need, but no money, no political will, clearly expressed political will, yet you got to build some infrastructure. That we took that as our challenge. Those were our going in positions. And we've developed a program, a public-private partnership, which allows us to use money that's not directly coming out of the Navy's budget. We're paid for eventually by the Navy, but we'll use private bonds to build infrastructure and then let the Navy use that and buy it over a long-term period of 30 years. I mean, and do it in a place. The other problem that the shipyards have today and the shipbuilders have today is that in Groton, Connecticut, or in San Diego, California, or even Norfolk, Virginia, there are lots of other things that these young men and women can do than go into the shipyard trades, which are tough jobs. They're very well paid jobs, but they're tough jobs. And the cost of living in some of these areas, particularly in New England, is exorbitant these days. Yeah. And even if you're making $100,000 a year, and then you can do that as a shipyard worker working overtime anyways, it's a tough place to get a good standard of living for your family. I know you're in Southern California, you know what I'm talking about. So you've got to be in a place where there's an available workforce and a reasonably low cost of living. So that was basically where we came from.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you're starting to hear all these crazy stories about the government wanting to relieve student loan debt, all these other crazy ideas, and yet the trades, you can't find a plumber out here in San Diego. So the trades it's that sort of elephant in the room. Hey guys, these are some great jobs. And as an aside, and then we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into your proposals. As an aside, I think Mike Rowe with Dirty Jobs should do a series about shipbuilding, or
absolutely.
I think that would be a great way to promote it. Anyway, I digress there. So the one thing that when we had originally talked about doing this interview, the one thing that I thought was really interesting about this was it seems like it's a benefit to the DoD to have the public privates have basically a private company, someone like yourself or other companies come in and actually do the heavy lifting of building these places and ramping them up. It just seems like that's a no-brainer. Why is that? What type of resistance are you getting as you're promoting this type of project?
Well, as you know from your own service in the Navy is a very heavy on tradition. It's a little bit bureaucratic. It's slow to adapt and change. I don't think call the Navy fleet of foot when it comes to flexibility. It's not, clearly not as structured and ridiculous as something like the Soviet military, which they don't know when to blink their eyes or whatever. But our Navy is full of tradition and full of bureaucracy, like most large organizations are. And so our proposal appears to a lot of people at the jump to be a little bit out of left field and a little bit ridiculous, particularly the location we've selected, which is in the Great Lakes. But the location is the key to getting this low-cost capital, because there's a state-sponsored economic development program that our plan taps. And also, when you look at the employment statistics, the region of Ohio specifically that we've selected has got a lot of unemployed and underemployed people even today in this kind of a skilled trade workforce. So the people are here, the people are ready to do these jobs, the people want to do these kind of jobs. And yet, what have we experienced up here in the Midwest? We've experienced auto factories closing, we've experienced steel mills closing. The location that we've got two locations in Ohio. One of the locations for 200 years had a shipyard there, but it was closed in 1984. We want to build another facility there to do ship manufacturing support and potentially do ship repair there. So it's it's kind of like a cycle. I mean, the world goes on a sinus curve, right? Up and down, cycles. Well, the cycle in the Midwest, which was the great industrial Rust Belt of America, was deindustrialization over the last 20 years as everybody moved to China. In fact, I live in the Cleveland area, and there were 2 steel mills in Cleveland, one on the east bank of the river, one on the west bank of the river. Well, the steel mill on the west bank of the river about 25 years ago was actually physically disassembled, put on a ship, and moved to China and rebuilt there. So the West Bank steel mill is now making steel in China. And instead, we've got a Walmart and a Target in what's called Steelyard Commons on the west bank of the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. The East Bank still has a steel mill going, but the West Bank mill is gone. The steel mill in Lorraine, which is where we want to build our facility, is closed. The shipyard in Lorraine is closed. The Ford plant in Lorraine is closed. The GM plant in Lordstown is closed. All these plants are closed, and all these people were displaced. Yet the people in this area don't want to leave. The people that were willing to leave have all left a long time ago. The people that are here love it here for a lot of good reasons. Great standard of living, low cost of living. We don't have sunshine every day like San Diego. You guys get rain in January. I know because I was stationed there. But we get more rain, and we certainly get more solid rain, snow in the winter and cold weather. But still, it's a good way to live here, and there's a lot of people need jobs. So we have the population, we have the money, we have the access through the St. Lawrence Seaway, and it just and the program we've proposed is already authorized in legislation, both at the state and the federal level. No new laws are required. It's all on the books. We're just innovatively assembling different rules that existed already in isolation, put them together and make a plan. All of a sudden, voila, we can save the Navy billions of dollars in cost of capital to build these new facilities. And we can get them online years faster. I know Ron O'Rourke, Congressional Research Service, puts out the reports to Congress, lets them know what's going on. Last week, he put out 2 reports. And I just want to read a quote from Ron O'Rourke's latest reports. The first one I want to read is from the Columbia-class report, which is the new missile submarine. And he says, the issues for Congress include the following: the risk due to technical challenges and or funding related issues to delay in designing and delivering the lead Columbia could put the nation at risk, the Navy's ability to have a boat ready before the Ohio-class retires. And then the potential impact the Columbia-class program will have on other Navy programs because it's taken up a lot of budget. Finally, the potential industrial-based challenges of building both Columbia and Virginia at the same time. From the Virginia report, which was issued the next day, he said, potential oversight issues for Congress regarding Virginia-class programs, including the SSN force level goal and procurement rates, which are at risk, the industrial-based challenges of building both Virginia and Columbia class at the same time, and cost and schedule issues in building the new version of the Virginia class, which is going to have missiles in it, extra missiles in it. So we're facing a deadline for Columbia class, and we don't have the industrial base to do it. And what we proposed saves billions and saves years in getting it done. So we think it's a good deal for the government, good deal for the Navy, good deal for the nation, and a great deal for Ohio, which needs the jobs.
Yeah. And when you're out there on Capitol Hill, kind of talking to congressmen about this, congressmen and women, what's their reaction? I mean, are we just right now in our society, are we just so paralyzed in the political process that they say, yeah, this is great, but we just can't do anything right now? What's their reaction?
They all understand. I will tell you that a Democrat from the Virginia 2nd District, Elaine Luria, has taken a personal interest in all these issues. She's a former Navy commander. She served on the aircraft carrier. She's a newt, like me. And she's taken a personal interest. In fact, she visited the George Washington just the other day. And she's very interested in all these things. I met with Congressman Garamendi, who's chairman of the Readiness Subcommittee in the House Armed Services Committee, very interested in all of this. They're all very interested in it, but at the end of the day, the Navy and the administration has to make it their priority to get this done. I think Congress is ready to support doing the right thing. The issue is the administration has to make a decision that they want to go ahead and do this. And it's either, and you know, if I'm old enough that if this doesn't work, so what? My life goes on, whatever. I should be retired anyways. My wife keeps telling me, why are you doing this? But so it's not about me and it's not about our idea. I mean, I've got a great team. Probably the best thing I've ever done in my life is put this team together. A great team of people that know exactly what we're doing here. The issue is, what is the Navy going to do to fix their problem? If not what we've proposed, what the hell is their solution?
Yeah.
And it can't be to wait 5 years till the next fit up and then think if they can program it in and fit it in. We don't have 5 years to fool around.
Yeah.
We don't have the time to fool around. You know, Top Gun, the new Top Gun's coming out here in a week or two, whenever it is. And you remember back to that original Top Gun where the guy says, this will be over in 3 minutes or something like that. I had an event like that happened to me on a submarine. It's on the Gato where, well, we almost sank and whatever. We had to go do something because we couldn't wait around for an alarm to clear in 3 minutes because it was going to be over in 3 minutes if we hadn't done something. So we did it. Well, I'm telling you right here, you know, and I lived through that. My heart lived through that. My adrenaline pump went in overload, but we saved the ship because I'm here to talk to you about it today. We completed our mission. We brought back the goods and we got a muck over it. So, you know, we did the job, but it's unfortunate we had to fight the ship just like we were fighting our adversary at the same time. This was happening, just to put a timestamp on it, during Reagan's first summit with Gorbachev in Geneva. This is when all this was happening on the Gato in the fall of '85. So fast forward to today, it's just as critical. You know, we haven't got 3 minutes to fool around wait for the guy with afterburners to get there. You know, we haven't got anybody to come rescue us. We haven't got time for the alarms to clear. You know, you got to take action right now. Right now, you have to take action because there's no time to fool around.
Yeah, well, and especially because the lead time or the lag time, you know, if they were to say tomorrow, if they were to say, yeah, go ahead and do this, by the time you get up operational, you're talking a few years down the road. You know, Jerry, when I talked to Jerry, I interviewed Jerry, I've interviewed him a few times. And the first interview that we were talking about, you know, the window of that everybody seems to talk about in DC, the window of actual armed conflict with China is coming up really quickly. Within the next couple of years, and it's a 5 or 6 year window. And so that's where we're either going to show our ass or we're going to step up and make it happen. What bothers me, and again, I hate to throw my sort of my politics into it, or just my views of how DC works in general. What bothers me is that you have to hit them over the head, whether it's they're not going to get reelected or the United States could potentially lose the next conflict. You have to hit them over the head like that. And sometimes that's not even enough.
Well, I'm a businessman and I'm a Navy supporter. And like anybody else in America, I've got political views. I mean, I live in Ohio. We just had the primary the other day. And everybody's talking about the results. But the thing that I've observed, and I've been around the block a few times, okay? I'm not a rookie to this. What's going on right now is almost unprecedented because what we have is we're in the first term of a presidential administration. We're at the midterm. We also have redistricting going on around the nation. And I met with Congressman Garamendi last week. He's from Northern California, up near Oakland, Vallejo, that area. And, currently represents a district that runs from Sacramento to Vallejo kind of area. And it's going to change. And I look at like Congresswoman Luria down in Virginia 2nd. She's a Democrat that was elected during Trump's first midterm. She's up for her second reelection now. She's a national security hawk, but she's a Democrat. And then I look at what's going on in Ohio, where we lost the congressional seat, and the congressional representatives that represent Lordstown and Lorraine right now, both of them are going to be different next year because of redistricting. So I look, and also, Ryan lost the seat in redistricting. He's running for Senate, right? Who knows if he gets elected or not. What I look at, though, is everybody in Washington right now, it appears to me, is more focused on the election that's going to happen in November, more than I've ever observed in the run-up to an election. And it's because of the effect of redistricting, and it's because maybe there's a feeling of unease in the United States these days. We're coming out of COVID, and there's been a lot of political turmoil in the last 6 years, 8 years, whatever, 10 years. It's been a tumultuous political period, right? A lot of political turmoil. We've had all suffered through this COVID business. In fact, one of my key guys, a retired admiral, just sent me an email today, said, and I was with him the other day, says, I got COVID, so now I got to go get a COVID test. So we're all still dealing with that at some level, right? But everybody's focused on this election. And I think it's got Washington in gridlock. I think nothing is happening right now because everybody's more focused on what's going to happen in November than the fact that if you don't do something this week in May, it could have a disastrous consequences on our ability to defend ourselves going forward next year and the year after and the year after that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a gridlock on steroids because of redistricting, because of the political malaise or unease, and because of just unusual focus and everything.
Well, and that's obvious. It's obvious that our adversaries are seeing that same thing. I mean, North Korea is testing missiles right now. China still keeps poking around Taiwan, so they know they can see that, and that's the thing that is the concern for me is that everyone's focused on Ukraine, and hopefully somebody's watching the other side of the
Seventh Fleet, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and that's all those sorts of things, and you never want it to be, but you can almost guarantee it's going to happen. If that were to happen, they'd say we were completely blindsided. We had no idea this was coming, type of thing, to just try to make excuses away. So again, I don't want to go super political about it, but obviously it's military. At some level it is political. One of the things when Jerry Hendricks had first told me about you, he was telling me kind of what your thought was about going through the St. Lawrence waterway. And that I was like, wow, that seems crazy. So tell me a little bit about, so let's say you get authorization to set these plants up in Ohio. How would you see that working?
Well, we've partnered with Fincantieri Marine Group, which is a shipbuilder in Wisconsin. They have 3 shipyards up there. One of them is called Bay Shipbuilding in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. The other one, Marinette Marine, is doing the Constellation class frigate. We're partnered with the guys at Bay Shipbuilding because when the St. Lawrence Seaway was built back in the 50s, when I was just a little kid, they took as a limitation the size of the Welland Canal. Everybody's seen Niagara Falls, but you have to think about it for a minute. The Great Lakes are actually about 550, 600 feet above the sea level in the ocean. Okay. So we're like 550, 600 feet up. That's what makes Niagara Falls work. And so if you think about it on a grand scale, Niagara Falls is really Lake Erie dumping into Lake Ontario. That's what it is. And if you run the numbers, which because I'm a geek, I've done, the water in Lake Erie is only there 2 weeks. It comes down from Detroit, from the upper lakes, runs through Lake Erie, which is only about 30 feet deep in most places, and runs over Niagara Falls in about 2 weeks. That's the volume of water flow that's going through there. And what you see in Niagara Falls is not all of it either, because they got a bunch of hydroelectric plants around that as well. So they've really reduced the flow through there. But they made this thing called the Welland Canal in the 1800s, and it allowed you to go from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario with a series of locks, 7 locks. And the size limitation on the Welland became the size limitation on the St. Lawrence Seaway, which was unfortunate because it's very small. It's 78 feet on the beam, 740 feet on the length, and 26 and a half feet on the draft, which is a small vessel in terms of ocean-going vessels. The frigates and the LCSs, not a problem with that. But when you look at a deep draft vessel, it's not coming up here. And unfortunately, today's modern submarines are deep draft vessels. They draw more than 26.5 feet. So you have to provide them some modest buoyancy lift to get them up here. So should we build dry docks up here, and we may or may not build dry docks, but if we did, we'd have to lift the vessel up a little bit and then transport it through the seaway. So we've developed, and we've publicly released, it's on our website, a picture of something called an ocean-going transport carrier, which we've submitted a patent application on and whatever. But it's a modification of an existing vessel called an articulated tug barge. They're very popular. They're used to transport petroleum products usually. And Fincantieri happens to be one of the largest manufacturers of the ATBs. So we're going to modify the ATB design to have a space in the center. You can drive a submarine in, lift it up a little bit, and drive it up from Connecticut into the Great Lakes if we decide to build dry docks up here. If we don't, and we're just building equipment up here for the submarines, we'll still use that same vessel, and we'll just use a crane and drop pieces of new ship as large as 300 tons each.
Wow.
Big modular sub-assemblies, drop them into the transport carrier, and then use that same articulated tug barge to get them out the St. Lawrence Seaway out to Groton. And then, of course, for smaller items, we'll use rail and truck, and the smallest items, we've got air as well. So we've got great rail connectivity, great truck connectivity, and we've got ocean connectivity as well.
Yeah. So and all this information's on your website?
BartlettMaritime.com or AmericanNaval.com. It's the same website.
Okay. And then do you have any type of publications out there that kind of talk about this, or that where if people are interested in learning more, they go to your website first, and then from there you can pretty much
they can go to our website, and we've got just this week on Monday of this last week, May 2nd, and I know as we record this on May 2nd, just this week, we had our union. We've partnered with the AFL-CIO because all the shipyards are unionized, and I've run union businesses and I've run non-union businesses. And where the unions exist, the unions are very supportive. They understand the stakes. And so we elected to partner with the AFL-CIO. We are not anti-union at all. We've welcomed the unions. They've welcomed us. We're working together. Unions sponsored a rally in Lorain, Ohio this week. And on our website, on the news page, there's actually a complete video of it. Sherrod Brown, U.S. Senator, and 2 U.S. Congressmen, Tim Ryan and Marcy Kaptur, who represent those locations currently, won't represent them next year. Both came, as well as a number of, call it the mayors of the two villages, and one of the admirals that works for me and myself, and a lot of other union folks. We had a rally out there. It was a great, well-attended rally. That's there. We did a press interview, the National Press Club in Washington in early March. That's up on our website. Anybody can see that. And it's got all of our partners, Fincantieri, Goldman Sachs, who's our partner on finance. So, we've got a very, very impressive team. You look at them, it's almost like Murderers Row from the Yankees in terms of the people we've been able to assemble on our team, which is all up there as well. And the interesting thing, we've added a subscribe button to the bottom of our website so that anybody that's interested in staying up to date on our progress can subscribe. And then every time we issue a news release or a blog post, it'll automatically get sent a copy of it. We'll have to go find it.
Nice. So where are you in the process, and where do you see what's your next? I mean, let's look at it as a politician. Do you see anything happening in the next 2 years, or is it going to be after that? What's your take on all that?
We have been working on this since the fall of 2018. Fall of 2018. I started myself. I created this company to do this. And we've submitted a series of unsolicited proposals. We got comments back on the first series after almost 9 months, I guess. But those comments, while they had a lot of comments, they validated our concept basically for us, which we reinforced our efforts and answered the mail and answered their comments and whatever. We completely resubmitted this proposal in January this year. We submitted an update to the proposal in April 6th to give them the update, because we continue to work on development at our own cost. The Navy has not given us one red cent on this project. I'm multiple millions of dollars out of pocket myself on this project. because I'm so committed to getting it done. The Navy has issued a request for information on some of the processes, a so-called component repair center, which we've answered. The long and short of it is, our next event is a May 31st meeting with the program executive offices of the Navy to review our updated strategy, which reflects all the latest input based on the Navy's own analyses of what they need first. And unlike a bureaucratic organization, as a smaller company, we can afford to be very flexible.
Right.
So we've adjusted our approach. Our initial approach is in Lordstown, Ohio, we want to do this component repair center and accelerate overhauls by accelerating the repair of equipment from ships. And in Lorain, Ohio, we want to build a facility to help build parts for new ships, mostly submarines, but it could be as well aircraft carriers as well, because the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and submarines are all kind of one, because there's two shipyards. And both shipyards, Newport News and Electric Boat, both need help building parts for the ships, structural assemblies, small sub-assemblies, whatever. So that's our focus. And then should the Navy later elect to build additional dry docks, we've got that capability still available to us. So we're going to be meeting with the Navy at the end of May. We're going to present this to them. We're going to present our financial analysis too, which clearly demonstrates that this saves them billions of dollars in terms of cost of capital, ensures that we'll have properly capitalized facilities such that we can do the job on time with a high level of quality that's required. Because as you know, in aircraft and submarines, you're one heartbeat away from disaster, right? If something's not right.
Right.
Catastrophic failure on an aircraft, catastrophic failure on a submarine, there's no more. So they have to be high quality. They have to be done right. Yeah. So you have to have well-capitalized facilities, well-trained staffs to do it. So we'll be reviewing that with them. They could award us a contract at any time to get started. We hope they will elect to not wait till after November, because the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. Yeah. The time is a premium. You cannot buy back time. At the front of a schedule when you get time, and now is that front end. So we're hopeful that we will be under contract maybe in June. That would be the best. And if we were under contract in June, we'd actually be doing limited production work in early part of 2023 in temporary facilities.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Again, that's the civilian sector, private business that can be fast, can be nimble, to be able to help out the behemoth that is the government. So talking to all my friends that are still in the Marine Corps, and like we talked about earlier, that there's some serious reshuffling of how the military does business now, to the point where like they're talking about getting rid of most manned aircraft because of the whole success of all the UAVs and all that. I have no idea where that stands, but it bums me out as a former manned aircraft pilot. What is right now the Navy? What does the Navy look like in the current leadership's mind in 10 years? Is it a bunch of submarines and a lot of smaller, more nimble surface ships, or what does the Navy is going to look like?
I think that we'll start with the aircraft carriers. I think we'll have aircraft carriers for as far into the future as we can see. And I think that the number of 8 to 11, I think, is what they've published. I believe that's what they published. This week, as we record this, the USS Tripoli just went on deployment out of San Diego, right down the street from you. And they went out with, I think, 20 F-35Bs on board. And I think they had all Marine crews on those F-35Bs. And that is they're calling that the Lightning carrier concept, or the small carrier concept. That's, I think the F-35B, particularly the B model, I'm not so sure about the other model, but the B model is transformative in terms of the capabilities of the Marine Corps. So I think that they will have the nuclear powered aircraft carriers 8 to 11. I think this Lightning carrier thing is going to show a way to get a good punch without having to have the big investment in the large CVN. I think that we will have a large surface ship, something like the DDG-51, not that, something like the follow-on to the Flight 3 DDG-51s. We'll have a lot of frigates. The Constellation class is going to be very successful, I believe, based on the FREM, which is very successful. And we should have a large number of those. And we'll have a smaller amphibious force with more of the light amphibious warships and, you know, the distributed concept that General Berger is talking about for the Marine Corps. On the submarine side, the submarine force is going to be larger than it is today. We currently have 50 attack submarines, and everybody and their brother knows that we need 70 or more attack submarines. We're going to retire the 4 SSGNs. They'll be replaced by the Block 5 Virginia class, although the thing, and Jerry Hendricks talks about this a lot, and it's very obvious to me as well, the number of Tomahawk tubes out there in the fleet is going down in the next 15 years. With the retirement of the SSGNs, and the retirement of the cruisers, the Ticonderoga class ships that are left, we're going to lose a lot of VLS tubes. And that's going to be bad for the Navy in the near term. And then we're going to replace the Ohio class with the Columbia class and have that capability. But the problem we've got is, even though Trump talked about 500, these guys are talking about something 400 something, including unmanned. But the reason they gave you a shipbuilding plan that had 3 different versions of it, the long range shipbuilding plan that was just issued, is because there's one that the DoD will pay for, and then there's one that we need. And it's, you know, the big one is not the one they'll pay for. The DoD is willing to pay for a small one, but we really need a big one. And I think that's the Navy trying to make a statement saying this is what you really need, but it's not what you're really going to get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And is it going to be that concept? Are we going to be bouncing back and forth between Democratic administrations and Republican administrations? Generally speaking, Republican administrations are more open to spending more in the military. Are we going to be bouncing back and forth depending on who's in the White House with all of this?
It would be nice if we could get a strategic objective and move for it.
Yeah. I
mean, John Lehman's a friend, and I've worked with him on a number of projects. And George Sawyer, who was his deputy in the Navy when he was Secretary, George was the acquisition chief, and he's also a partner of his and John Lehman and Company, their private equity fund. George was on my senior advisory board for a full disclosure. He recently retired. He's 91 years old, so don't blame me for retiring. But the long and the short of it is what Lehman did with George's help in the 80s, building up to the 600 ship Navy. Somebody needs to take a position like that, and we need to get it done. We've been living off the fat of the land. We lived off what was left from World War II for a long time in terms of ships. Now we're living off what's left from the Reagan buildup for ships, right? A lot of the ships that are being retired today were built during the Reagan buildup. And from a facilities point of view, we're almost at the end of living off what was left from World War II. You know, the piers, the naval shipyards, all that stuff. The reason the PSYOP needs to be spent on the naval shipyards is because we haven't really invested in those things since World War II. You know, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Portsmouth, New Hampshire Naval Shipyard, both of those shipyards are older than the United States itself. They were formed before the United States, and they just need to be updated in a significant way. So it's time for the nation to get serious and support the Navy. The Constitution is very clear, you know, build and maintain a Navy.
Well, yeah, it's my crystal ball is very cloudy right now in terms of what's going to happen. And I can only hope that that the people that are in DC that are running all this stuff make the right decisions. But if recent past is our prologue, I'm not entirely confident that that's going to happen.
Well, it's easy to be cynical.
Yeah.
What I've decided to do, and I've convinced my whole team to decide with me, is that, hey, I look at it this way. I mean, you've done it. I've done it. Anybody that's worn the uniform has stood in the breach and had moments where they had to make individual decisions that had significantly highly leveraged consequences in a bigger way. And you do that on active duty. But to me, you take off the uniform, you don't ever really leave service. My brother, like you, was a Marine. He still talks about once a Marine, always a Marine. You know, I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, the Navy's not quite like that, but everybody that's involved in this project feels the same way. We're still supporting the United States Navy, supporting the naval services. And, you know, in the 1990s, when we couldn't sell Seawolf because it was too expensive, somebody had to figure out something. Naval Reactors, under the leadership of Admiral Bruce DeMars, did a great thing in developing Virginia. Now, today's submarine force is not happy because Virginia is not the hot rod that Seawolf is. They'd rather all be hot rods.
Yeah.
But you know what? We couldn't sell Seawolf. What we could sell was Virginia. And we gave them a hell of a good ship that we could sell. And it's a hell of a good ship. I mean, it's no one else in the world has anything close to it. So you got to deal with the reality as it is. And like Rumsfeld said, but you also have to realize that if nobody's going to solve a huge problem, maybe sometimes somebody has to stand up and step out on the windy corner and say, God damn it, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I might as well have to do it. Yeah. That's what I decided personally in 2018. If no one was going to fix this maintenance issue, I was going to stand up. Now I realize it's also a construction issue. I'm going to stand up and help them on that too. So well, the way it is. It's nothing about me. It's just about the way we are, people that are committed to this naval service, right?
Well, and it's supremely important, especially moving forward. I mean, anybody who's up on what's going on in the news today knows that that the wolves are at the gate right now. So, well, listen, Ed, this was great. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And as things progress, if all goes well, I'd love to talk to you down the road and kind of get an update.
Look forward to it.
All right. Hey, listen, guys, this is the Rain Man. If you're in the military, the police departments, fire departments, or first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. Ed Bartlett, it was a pleasure, sir. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
All right, guys, it's the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, observations on the world we live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.